What's your carnal theory?
Hey there, you're listening to Carnal Theory, where we talk with experts from around the world to learn how taking command of our sexual story affects our personal wellness, sexual experiences, and relationships with ourselves and others. Hey everyone, I'm Ava.
And I'm Amanda. And today on Carnal Theory, we're sitting down with Courtney Avery, the creator of Intimate Health Yoga. Courtney, who also works as a birth doula, uses her master's in public health to address women's health, reproductive health, global health, and disease prevention in education across cultures. Hey, Courtney, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, you two.
It's definitely our pleasure. And Courtney, we like to kick off each show, as our guests, as our listeners know, started off by exploring the carnal theory that you've brought for our consideration today. And as a reminder for our new listeners, this theory, it's something that's potentially meant to challenge a presumption or a perception that we might have about something. And in this case, it relates back to our theme this month, which is sex and the senses. And we'll talk about that for a bit. We'll probably branch off to some other things and talk about what Courtney does and what she's up to. And then at the end of the show, we'll loop back on that theory and we'll see that, maybe in the course of this conversation, our perceptions may have shifted a little bit of how we feel about this theory. So we'll just reflect back on it, and our guests can take that for further consideration as they move through their days and lives. So Courtney, if you would please, if you could kick us off and share with us the really lovely theory that you've brought.
Absolutely. Thank you. So this theory I'd like to discuss today is mindfulness allows us to be more present to the sensations in our bodies. The more we expand our awareness of our senses, the more sensation we can experience in every moment.
Yes. When I first read that, one of the first things that came to mind is a very early practice. One of you might be able to pinpoint where this comes from, but an early practice I remember learning is just like mindful eating. And like in the relationship to the senses, obviously there's, some, taste going on there. It might even be texture and some other things, but just like mindfully eating and how that can enhance and affect our senses. What's your take on how that then like ebbs into the sexual space? I know you're heavily involved in the yoga scene, so that's obviously pretty crucial there. But is there a sexual side of that you see melding together?
Yes, definitely, absolutely. So, mindfulness is really presence, right? So it's being present in this exact moment. And there are so many factors that stop our minds from being present to what our body is experiencing, especially when it comes to sexuality and sensuality. And just a reminder, sensuality, that's all about the senses, right? It's the enjoyment or pursuit of the physical senses and fulfilling the senses, right? So when we are not fully present in the moment, we're not totally feeling our bodies, we can disconnect from our bodies. So what causes that disconnection? Shame, traumatic experiences, not feeling safe, fear, pressure, right? All these things make us like dissociate from our body and disconnect, which makes it difficult to experience pleasure when it comes to sensuality, when it comes to sex. So that's really the theory that I teach all my clients. It's if you are disconnected, it might even be difficult to know that you're disconnected. But when you stop, pause, and do some techniques to get grounded in your body, then you finally arrive to like, oh, okay, there's a lot more happening than I was even aware of before.
Are there some specific techniques that pandemic world that we live in, like some things that maybe on just like a day-to-day, some simple things that you suggest people tapping into?
Totally. Actually, how about we practice this right now?
Oh,
Do you guys
boy.
want to try this? Ooh.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'd love
All
to.
right. So, close your eyes and you can just rest your hands on tops of your thighs or wherever they feel comfortable, just so you're relaxed, right? So take a deep breath in and breathe into your belly. So expand your belly open. And then exhale and try to relax your shoulders a bit. Mm-hmm. And let's do that one more time. Take a deep breath into your belly. Hold the breath in and imagine you blowing away stress tension with this exhale. Awesome. Now, keep breathing, but I want you to focus on your left pinky finger. So the tip of the left pinky finger. Try not to change it or adjust it, but just be aware of how it feels. So can you feel maybe the air on your skin? Can you feel maybe even a pulsing sensation, right? It's like blood flowing to your pinky. So just become aware of all the sensations. You can start to describe them in your mind. Maybe your pinky's touching something, right? So it's like making our minds hyper focused and hyper aware of the sensations just in the left pinky finger. Take a deep breath in and a big open mouth exhale. And you can blink open your eyes. So in that exercise, I really like to ask people, how did that feel? Like, did you notice sensation in your pinky? And yeah, what was that experience like for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I've been able to practice, coming in and to my body and noticing sensations in different appendages or whatever in the past. And I find that often when it happens, yeah, there's this sudden tingling or pulsing or just like suddenly you're like, yes, there is air, like cooler air around my finger that I just never noticed before. So I think that's something that always kind of strikes me, that there's so much I'm feeling that I just don't even know most of the time, or I'm not aware of.
Totally.
But it would also
and
be
it's not.
I was just going to say, it would also be like just like sensory overload if we were like always tapping into that.
Mm-hmm.
So
totally. I was just going to say, it's not bad that we're not aware of every little sensation in our body, because that could be a really great road to anxiety, right? Like,
yeah.
Oh my God, I'm feeling all these things. However, when if our brain is stuck in our thought patterns or stress or thinking about what we've got to do next, thinking of the to-do list, right? It's difficult for our minds to be fully present to the sensations in our bodies. When it comes to sex, that's when we realize like, oh, okay, it's difficult for me to experience orgasm, or it's difficult for me to really feel how I'm breathing. And, it's like, it's pretty much taking those little cues in our mind, or what's happening, the busyness in life, as like, okay, I can take a step back and breathe, right? And just remember, breathing is involuntary, right? Like it's just like the pinky. We don't have to think about our pinky to know that it's working, to know that it's there for us. But the second you take over breathing and make it voluntary, that's when you can actually really help your nervous system come back into rest and digest mode, or a parasympathetic nervous system, so that you can actually enjoy your sensual experiences, right? When we're not there, when we're not in control of our breath, we're acting from the sympathetic nervous system, which is also known as fight or flight mode, right? That's like high stress, don't have time to feel. I've got a lot to do. I'm under attack. And unfortunately, a lot of us act like that. We act from that space. We act from fight or flight mode. So it's really about using your breath as that tool to come back into your body, to come back into rest and digest mode.
I find that I can never really get as calm by myself as I do with other people. And I want...
I think I feel the same.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when, for me at least, when I work out on a YouTube video in my living room, there's no one else doing it. And so I feel like I'm not being held accountable. But when I'm collectively doing it with people, even over Zoom, but like at the same time, I'm kind of I feel a little bit more held accountable to really focus in and use that moment I have to be mindful or to clear my mind or whatever I'm doing. Is that kind of what you were saying, Abba?
Yeah, I wonder if there's like this. What you just said triggered something else that might also be there, like almost like this allowance, like a collective allowance that happens. Like, okay, others are allowing themselves to take a moment and breathe and chill. So, like, okay, like that's acceptable. Like, I can also step into this collective allowance that's happening. When I'm with myself, I think I get caught up in similar but different than like the accountability, but like this, like almost like guilt, like, oh wait, like taking this moment for myself, like somehow that's guilty, like somehow that's not allowed. Like I know better than that, obviously, but like, you know, my subconscious kicks in, I guess.
Totally. And I really know that you're not alone in this, right? Like I work with a lot of people on this, and I would say that's the number one thing is giving yourself permission to find that space, to find that oneness and that connection with yourself. Because let's face it, we live in a yang or yang dominated society, which is active. That's always out. It's like looking outward, looking for approval, asking for permission. Like, is it okay if I take a little break, right? Like, God forbid we sit and chill for a moment, right? And it's hard. And it's, you know, like I said, being mindful is easier said than done. Like we can get it intellectually, but, you know, sitting with your thoughts, they can be uncomfortable thoughts, right? Especially right now, a lot of us, I am dealing with our own anxieties and just mood changes and life changes, right? So it's, I think it comes down to self-compassion and giving yourself a break, even for not taking a break, right?
And there's something so counterintuitive in that, and clearly incredibly deeply drilled into our society, because the intuitive, you already mentioned like fight or flight, the intuitive nature should be to take care of ourselves for to preserve ourselves, you know, to live for life. And if intuitively or externally we are informed that taking care, that rest, you know, you're talking about our systems, how we're connected with our digestive system. You know, right now there's more and more research coming out how our gut health influences. You know, this has been long known, but you know, when I say coming out, I mean coming out to like the larger masses. How our gut health influences our entire immune system and our entire health and our mental health and all of us, you know, all of ourselves. So somewhere in there just seems like this incredible counterintuitive click that's happening, where we've been so drilled in with this pressure and I guess external societal pressure to go, which in fact just kills us quite literally. When we should just be prioritizing taking care of ourselves, because that is what keeps us healthy and alive. There's something messed up going on here that
I agree.
Some observation.
There's,
you know,
there's something. I
wonder what
totally
it is.
relate to that. Yeah.
No, I mean, yeah, it's the work. It's capitalism. What? You know?
Totally. And it's funny you mentioned that, because I want to like just point this out. Even self-care has become like, you have to like actively do something, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not like self-care Sunday unless you've got a mask on and you're like making tea and you're cooking, right? Like,
and you're Instagramming it.
yes, right? Like that's what?
Yeah.
Like, what if it was just sitting?
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe that's what your body needs, right?
Yeah.
But now we're like preconditioned to like, we have to do, and we have to like get things outside of ourselves to take care of ourselves, when it's in reality, it's starting here.
Maybe in there's a thread of hope, because if in this hypothesis that I'm putting out there that that we are able to be so brainwashed essentially to do what is counterintuitively healthy for ourselves, then that means that an equal amount of brainwashing can lead us to tap into whatever lives at the other end of the rainbow, you know?
Exactly. And I think that's as simple as it is, as easy as it is to get out of your mind, you have everything you need to get back into your mind and back into your body, right? You have your body, you have your breath. Bam, bam. Simple as that, right?
Yeah.
So it is good news. Like, you're right. It's uncovering those layers of what we should be doing or shouldn't be doing. And then, we end up shitting all over ourselves, and that's not fun.
No, very messy.
How can we, so I think often people think of mindfulness as like just sitting and meditating maybe, and trying to clear your mind and focus on like the sensations, like what you hear, what you smell, what you feel. How can we apply that like with a sexual experience where you're doing something? So like there has to be a certain amount of like you're not just sitting and going so how can we be participating in like this sexual experience? Maybe it's with yourself, with a partner or partners, and also trying to be mindful or present.
I love it. All right. So let's start with, it's your pleasure. It's your orgasm. It's your body, right?
Mm-hmm.
So number one starts with you. You have to feel connected to be able to connect with someone else, right? So I really like to think of it as a mindfulness practice, and it doesn't have to be just sitting your eyes and closing them and meditating, right? This can be done in every moment. Like right now, I am focused on this interview. I'm focused on talking with you. My full body is here. Once in a while, I'm like, ooh, I wonder what I'm going to eat after, because that's me, right? Like I have a monkey brain. We all have these thoughts. It doesn't mean less, but it's just becoming aware of those thoughts, right? So I would say number one starts with practicing in everyday life. You can, like you mentioned, mindful eating. That's one of my favorite ways to practice, especially for sensuality. Closing your eyes, naming the flavors, noticing the textures, letting the food like roll around in your mouth, like discovering the aromas, discovering how it feels, like actually going down your throat, right? So this isn't just like quick eat some chocolate. It's like a whole experience, right? So then when you apply that to the bedroom or to any sexual experience, first of all, starting with you, right? So I tell everyone, start by breathing into your own body. So what helps is yoga connects mind, body, and breath, right? So if I lay my hands on my body, I breathe, and then mentally I'm more focused here. That's going to help me connect. From that space, that's when I can fully show up for someone. I love this. This actually comes from some tantric practices. We're really good at multitasking, as in it's promoted in society, right? Mm-hmm. But can you be completely mindful to your sexual experience? Mm-hmm. And that's either giving or receiving, right? So what would it be like to fully receive? I know that a lot of people can relate to this. It's like, I'm receiving, someone's going down on me, it feels amazing, but in the back of my head, I'm calculating how long it was and trying to rush it so he doesn't have to be there that long, or I can give the same amount of pleasure back. Right? So is that being mindful in that moment? Not to the sensations, not to the experiences, no. So it's also practicing that mindfulness when you're receiving. And then the same thing for giving. If you are in your head about giving, I want to do this, this, and this, but you're not asking your partner, you're not connected with their body, you're not allowing for a conversation and for being present to how they would like to receive, then it can be another weird, detached experience. So I would say I love actually telling couples to practice this. And I typically hear that it's more difficult for the more like feminine or more yin couple or partner to receive, because a lot of us are really conditioned to give, and then calculate that and then figure out how to make it equal.
I was thinking about that when you were first saying that, like just being able to be there and receiving, like that's not what we are indoctrinated. We are the servants. We are the this, we are the that. Yeah.
Giving and pleasing, making sure everyone is happy, and I think that for me, we have these online workshops and facilitated discussions that we host. And in one of them, which is called In the Mood Mondays, it's really great. And we get to open up and talk about our sexual experiences. And what I hear really often is like, I want to make sure that like that my partner feels good about what we just like the experience we just shared, even if that means not saying that like this could be better, like I would have preferred this, because I don't want to let them down or make them feel like they did a bad job, quote unquote,
Totally.
when they want to please you as well. And so it's benefiting everybody. And I, of course, totally understand that and have felt like I can't say those things, or like I just don't even want to. It's not that I'm like yearning to. It's like, nope, I don't even need to. I just want them to be happy.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to break that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something you just mentioned, Courtney, that I want to underline is you mentioned the asking questions. And I think one of like big picture movements I hope that we are helping to encourage at My Sex Bio is like normalizing question asking, which then goes into like several categories. There's like consent that it can like potentially check off. There's pleasure in what the other person wants, but there's also getting, because you get to ask things or say or tell things once you're asked questions. And that is so fucking under delivered.
I agree.
With everyone. This is, for that at least, I don't think that is like a male, female, feminine, masculine energy like issue. That's just like no one has been taught to give a shit to ask the questions. And God,
it's so true.
Damn, if it wouldn't be better if we did.
It would be so much better. It comes back to giving ourselves permission to speaking up, to being in our bodies.
And thinking, I was thinking a second ago in terms of the senses, when you're asking those questions, that's auditory, and then that's verbal. That has a huge amount of potential to engage the senses. It was in one of our classes or an interview or something, but we were talking about like how sexy it is. Like we quasi have normalized the idea of like asking, like, can I kiss you? Like that has become a bit more normalized. And like, that's always in the framework of like this hot, sexy moment, So we even like equate it with like hot coolness, but like nothing else past that, So like we know the power, like we've dipped the pinky in there to like feel that it's like potentially hot, but we don't explore that any further. But anyway,
That's so true. Yeah.
What would you? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I wanted to. I think it's important to remember that your brain and your mind needs practice, just like a muscle, right? So I wouldn't expect a new yoga student to jump up into a handstand and hold it, right? And it just like I wouldn't tell if someone is really exploring this, like mindful sex and mindfulness. It's not like you're going to jump right into some completely present, ecstatic, like Buddhist monk state, right? Like you got to practice this. So just like you're saying, like naming your feelings, that's a huge way to vocalize what you want. Like, okay, I'm going to close my eyes. I'm listening to my body. I feel sad, right? And it's as simple as that. And then really like vocalizing these things, finding words for describing how your body feels, that's a great mindful practice so that you can practice communicating what you want from that space.
Yeah.
I would wonder, what would you say to someone? So basically, I think for myself and I think for many others, like a huge inhibitor of being able to be present, like specifically in a sexual situation, a sexual experience, is your self-image and being able to like, because it's such a vulnerable experience and you often are exposing your body to another person and a body in which maybe you're not very confident in. How do you, that is like a big long-term lifelong process of like coming to love and accept your body for many people. So how would you, or what would you say to someone to work through that in the moment and be able to still be present without that little thought in the back of your head, like, do I look okay? Like I wish the lights were off or whatever.
Yeah. Man, I wish I had a simple answer to that, because that is the question of the century, isn't it? Like, and I think it's a big testament to like, it is a process and it's a practice, right? I would say if we wanted to really relate it to the senses and training our mind to be more present to each of the senses, I would start with touch and sight in this case. I love this practice of feeling your body, like not just like touching my arm, like, okay, feel your shoulder. Like, how does it feel? What are the muscles like? What are the bones feeling like in my shoulder? Just getting really detailed on your own body and then thanking the shoulder for all the work it's done. Like finding gratitude for what it does, what it has gotten you. Really like thanking your body. And then you can start to move to the areas that you feel maybe more vulnerable about. Could be your belly, could be your vagina, could be your penis, right? It could be like the vulva in general, the exterior part. Right. And it's just being with yourself and moving through those feelings, number one, and then transforming those feelings into something positive. So I am feeling sadness, right? I'm feeling this emotion. I am grateful, right? I love, I accept. These mantras, these like I am or I statements actually really help to rewire your thoughts and think more positively. So I love my belly. I love my body. It has done so much for me, right? Starting there. I think that's an amazing like beginning journey. And then when you're ready, maybe sight, right? This could be like taking a picture of yourself and then writing out all the things that you love about your body. Like it wasn't yours. Like, oh, I love her butt. I love her smile. I love her hair. Like writing these things out like it wasn't you. Or just looking in the mirror and looking for a while and really seeing yourself, turning the lights up, right? I really recommend practicing all of these like love and self-acceptance practices on your own, and then maybe venturing into including a partner, because it really is a personal journey.
Yeah, that's important. And I think you've mentioned it already, but I think of how yoga really does connect all of those, like even to sight, which you're kind of last mentioning, but I think how often in yoga you're mentioned, lowering your gaze or, focusing on something specific. And all of those are like these micro and macro practices of like mindfulness. So being intentional of where you're looking in order to either keep focus on that one spot or to allow maybe that sense to not have to be kicked in so much so that your other senses can heighten or, take hold a little bit deeper.
Yeah, exactly. I love it.
Yeah. How do you use yoga as a bridge to exploring your clients and students' sexuality and sensuality?
Many ways, but I would say it's always easiest to start with the physical when I'm teaching, right? So pay attention to your breath, right? Start there, and then we'll start talking about the mind and the energy. I love teaching people about their pelvic floor muscles because this is an area of our body that we are oftentimes unaware of, and unaware that we can actually move these muscles, control them, and relax them. A lot of people that I work with have chronic pelvic tension. If you guys have ever experienced stress before and you feel your shoulders kind of shrinking up towards your ears, and like all of a sudden by the end of the week, you have a crazy tension headache and your shoulders are like this, right? And you go to massage it and it hurts because your muscles are like tensing for days. The same thing happens to your pelvic floor muscles. And these are the muscles that control the opening of the vagina. They control ejaculation. They rhythmically contract, whether you're aware of it or not during climax. So I love incorporating pelvic floor movement and pelvic breathing with the pelvic floor and just becoming aware of it, because that will directly impact your experience with your sensuality.
What is that? What are some of the more common causes and of that? Just people storing, like similar to how you might store stress in your shoulder, they store stress
in the pelvis.
Okay. Oh.
Yep, exactly. And it's a lot sneakier because here it's very like we talk about our shoulders. Right. We're open about our shoulders. They're visible. Like we can see like, oh, you look stressed out. Pelvic floor, it's not the case. You might notice that you have pelvic tension when you're going to have sex and penetration hurts, right? Or you are trying to poop or pee and it's difficult to fully relax so you can release and completely empty your bladder or your rectum, right? So it's so interesting, and I wish I could just like give a PSA out to the world, like, please care about your pelvic floor, because you might not know that it's tensing up or that it hasn't been used, right? And even worse is weak pelvic floor muscles because they can't fully support the organs that they need to support and they need to function.
So. When you, like, for example, if you're holding stress and tension in your shoulders, I find myself doing that quite often. And I kind of come into this rhythm of like checking in and being like, oh, like maybe 20 times throughout a day. What is it? Can you feel and relax? Like, can you notice that your pelvic floor and your muscles there are tense? Or is it like so much of a different type of stress held?
You can totally be aware of it, but it definitely takes some rewiring and learning because we're not really conditioned to feel there, or to learn about, to learn how it feels. So we can try this right now. How about squeeze all your muscles like you're stopping your pee and fart at the same time? Like, no joke. Like, pretend like, oh gosh, I do not want to let that out. Squeeze. And now relax. Yep. Feel that relaxed state. That's where we want to stay for most of the time throughout our day. So it's similar to shoulders. When someone doesn't really realize they're tensing their shoulders, I ask, like, okay, let's engage it then. Let's like exaggerate that tension. And then when you learn to relax and you feel that relaxed state, then your body's like, oh, okay, this is new. I think we can hang out here. We can keep doing this. But just like you're saying, it's like 20 times a day.
Yeah.
Checking in with yourself. And again, that's a journey, right? That's like practice. It's not impossible. It takes like dedication to yourself and feeling.
Yeah. Putting yourself first, which I really appreciate you saying. I mean, I think that that's implied a lot of the time, but not just outwardly said. Like, self-care starts with you. Full stop.
Totally. Yeah. Not with anything else that you have to do. Just you.
Yeah. And then all the benefits that come from that, as we're discussing, the more that you do tap into you and the more present you are with you, you can then actually better be present and enjoy what's happening around you, and to you tapping into those senses, tapping into those feelings that are little pieces of joy or whatever else that's going on.
Totally. Yeah.
What's a good way for someone who's never really been like practicing mindfulness regularly? So like for myself, I think often I forget, I'm not like disciplined enough to set aside time I'm definitely disciplined enough. I would say I haven't been putting that time aside. I just haven't been doing it. And I think what's really helpful is maybe having a small thing that someone can do every day. What would you say is like a good starting point? Like, I know some people have like little elastic bands that they like snap if they're trying to like train themselves out of something. Not that that's necessarily the best thing. I don't know. But what would you say in terms of making sure that you like remember to be mindful every day? Like, be mindful that you need to be mindful.
I love that question. I would say pick something you do often and let that be your trigger for taking a deep breath.
Mm-hmm.
I know that sounds really like simple, but that's like you're saying, yes, you can totally have a mindfulness. You can meditate every day. You can set your timer. You can sit. You can do all these things. But when you apply it to your life, that's going to make it more accessible for anyone, right? So let's see, Amanda, maybe for you, every time you sit down at your desk and open up your computer, before you send an email or before you start writing it, close your eyes and take 3 deep breaths. If you can't do 3, do 1.
Yeah.
Right? And let that be your reminder. And you'll probably forget it, but then remember again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that because it's something that's at least 50% of the time I'll probably remember it, remember to do it. And the more I do it, the more it will become automatic. I'll be like conditioned. Because I think it's like once you reach the conditioned point where you're just doing it without thinking, you can start building. But I think it's hard to find that entryway where you like reach that point. But that's like totally doable if you connect it to something that you're already doing and you just kind of like try your best, but don't beat yourself up over it.
That's it.
I love that.
That's it.
I'm going to try to connect it to when I get tea, because I do that anywhere between 3 and 10 times a day, depending upon what the day is like, and it's already something that brings me joy. Like, it's already like a joy-filled action. So it's not that I need a breather from it. It's just that, like, why not like enhance something? And it's a moment, because it's, I heat up the water or at least I turn the kettle on. So it's like just in that moment, there's really no excuse. I was thinking like, to what you just said to Amanda, like, could I associate it with like each time I go into Slack? And it's like, no, I won't do that. Like, that's not realistic. Like when I'm going into Slack, like, it's like, it's like straight in. There's always like a little zen.
And even like right now, like when you sip your tea in that mindfulness practice, that's your sense of taste, smell.
Yes.
Feeling the heat, that's a great example, especially if you do it often.
Yes. That's a beautiful nugget to end on. Thank you. Can you share one more time the carnal theory that you've...
Yes, I would love to. So the theory is mindfulness allows us to be more present to the sensations in our bodies. The more we expand our awareness of our senses, the more sensation we can experience in every moment.
Love it. I'm excited. I'm excited to start applying this. Thank you everyone for tuning in. We hope this episode's given you something further to reflect upon, and reach out to us with any questions or insights that you've gathered on our Instagram page at Carnal Theory or at My Sex Bio. And please check out Courtney's work on Instagram at Intimate Health Yoga or online at intimatehealthyoga.com. Thank you so much, Courtney.
Thank you guys so much. It was such a joy talking with you.
Carnal Theory is produced by My Sex Bio. Our sound design is by Audrey Cohane, and our theme music by Min the Universe. My Sex Bio is an educational platform built to empower people like you to take command of your sexual biography. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube, and Spotify at My Sex Bio. Visit our website and join our e-letter at mysexbio.org and support our work by joining our Patreon. Thank you.